Hi folks, HR Funk here with a video that I'll warn you now might run kind of long because I have a lot of information to unpack here, but if you have an interest in this topic, you might just get a lot out of this presentation. Not all that many years ago, weapon-mounted lasers were a pretty common accessory. A lot of people use them, and there were a lot of different variations. There were laser grips that were available, there were laser inserts for recoil spring guides, and of course there were the laser units that attach to the accessory rail on the front of most handguns. In recent years, however, the popularity of the weapon-mounted laser has declined, whereas the popularity of the weapon-mounted micro red dot sight has surged. And I hadn't really given that a lot of thought until recently when Olight sent me one of their BAL-DR weapon mount light and laser combinations. I'll give you a very quick review of the BAL-DR during the course of this presentation, but when I was thinking about this after this unit arrived, it occurred to me that I had never really seen a side-by-side comparison of the weapon-mounted laser and the micro red dot sight to demonstrate whether or not either sighting system had an advantage over the other. And I decided I wanted to try to put something like that together and make it as objective as I could. And during the course of this video, I'm going to explain what I came up with, how I evaluated these two different sighting options, and in the end, I'll tell you what I think of both of them and what I think are their advantages and their disadvantages. Now, when we think about it, both the laser and the micro red dot sight share some similarities. They both rely on a projected beam of light to give the shooter a visible reference as to the orientation of the pistol's bore relative to the target. The laser, of course, projects that visible reference directly onto the target, whereas the micro red dot requires the shooter to look through a lens in order to be able to see that visible reference. Both the laser and the micro red dot sight rely on target focus. So when using either sighting system, the shooter is able to concentrate more on the target to be able to see more of what's going on with the target than if the shooter were concentrating on the iron sights. Both the laser and the micro red dot are electronics, so they both have a power source which can fail, and if that happens, the defensive shooter then has to revert to the use of iron sights or other sighting technique in order to get shots on target. They both add weight and bulk to the handgun. They both generally require a modified holster in order to be able to carry a pistol that is equipped with either one. And even so, as I said earlier, with the exception of specific tactical situations that are almost exclusively going to involve persons in the military or law enforcement, interest in the laser has waned, whereas interest in the micro red dot has surged, especially for people that are not necessarily in the military or law enforcement. A lot of people are using micro red dots on their concealed carry firearms, and again, I'm just not sure why that's happened, and I've never seen anything objective that has compared these two sighting systems to show whether or not either one has the advantage. Another similarity shared by these two sighting systems is their ability to be combined with a weapon-mounted light. In the case of the laser, at least a laser like the BAL-DR here, that can be all combined in one light and laser unit, whereas with the micro red dot sight, the shooter still has to look through the lens of the sight in order to be able to see both the dot and the target, which is now illuminated by the weapon-mounted light. An area where these two systems differ is when it comes to a misalignment of the handgun with the target as a result of either an imperfect presentation or potentially firing from an unconventional position behind cover, over top of cover, or what have you. With the micro red dot, the shooter has to be able to see through the lens and see the dot in order to use it to put accurate shots on target. Whereas with the laser, so long as the shooter can see the laser and the target, the shooter does not necessarily have to be behind the handgun at all. It can be over top of their position, it can be around a corner or what have you, and they can still get that visible reference from the laser to be able to put shots on target. Now, I would not try that at any great distance. I do show a demonstration when we get to the range footage where I'm using that type of a technique to engage a target from cover, but again, it's relatively close range. I wouldn't try that from 25 yards, 50 yards, or anything like that. Another area where the laser sight differs from the micro red dot is something that ties into a point that I mentioned a little while ago, and that is for the so-called target focus. When the shooter comes on target with the micro red dot sight, he or she has to look through the lens, and because of the housing of the micro red dot sight and the requirement to look through the lens, they lose a little bit of their visual acuity with regard to the target. Whereas with the laser sight, the shooter can look directly at the target and have unimpaired vision and still see the laser sight superimposed on the target. So that's something I wanted to point out. Target focus is a topic these days that's pretty hot. I mentioned it in a video a while back, and I did notice that specifically when I got to the range, that I was able to focus on my target easier with the laser by looking directly at it than when I was required to look through the micro red dot sight. So now on to my comparison between these two sighting systems. One of the things that I wanted to do was mount both options on the same handgun. That way we remove the handgun as a variable when I get out to the test. If I would mount the laser on one handgun and the micro red dot on a different handgun, there's always the question as to the shootability of the two handguns, and does one have a better trigger than the other, etc., etc. In this case, I mounted both to my Canik Mete SF, which I really like shooting anyway, so this was another chance to shoot it. The laser light combination, as I said before, is the BAL-DR. This is actually the BAL-DR Pro from Olight, and I'll give you a close-up look at that right now. And here's a close-up look at the Olight BAL-DR Pro. It is a rechargeable light and laser combination with all aluminum construction. It features a quick release attachment and comes with inserts to accommodate both Glock and 1913 style rails. This unit has 3 different illumination modes. There is a constant on, there is a momentary on, and if you squeeze both tail caps at the same time, it gives you a strobe effect. It also offers both laser only, laser and light, and I hope you can see the laser dot there, or, went the wrong way, flashlight only. So you get a lot of light for not a lot of money with Olight, and I've always been very happy with their products. The micro red dot for this evaluation is the Vortex Defender CCW, and I recently produced a full review on this optic. If you missed that, go back and take a look, and you can get all the lowdown on the Defender CCW. Now, when I was devising my test protocols for this evaluation, I was primarily concerned with 2 things. Number 1 is accuracy. In my mind, accuracy is always paramount in a defensive encounter because accurate shots are going to be more effective on target, meaning you should have to shoot fewer times, whereas inaccurate shots are going to be less effective, or in the case of a miss, completely ineffective, and in a worst case scenario, that miss could strike another person and cause serious injury to someone you didn't want to shoot in the first place. The other thing that I wanted to look at was time for target acquisition. I wanted to see how fast I could get shots on target with both the micro red dot and compare that to how fast I could get shots on target with the laser sight. So those are the only 2 things I was really looking at. If other people want to debate things like cost and battery life and things like that, that's up to them. But I was really looking at these as sighting devices, and I was not looking at some of those other factors. So I'm using this target for my target sponsor, Targets Online, and when I shoot my way through the drills, any shots that strike inside this center area, which is primarily the heart, count as 3 points. Similarly, any dedicated headshots, as in the failure drills that you'll see, shots striking inside this center brain area and the spinal column count as 3 points. Shots striking in the next area, which is primarily the lungs in the body here, are worth 2 points. Shots striking outside of the center brain area but inside of this circle for the headshots count as 2 points. And shots striking outside of this area or I should say in this area of the body outside of the scoring squares that you see here, count as 1 point on the body, and shots outside of this circle on the head count as 1 point. So that's the way the scoring is going to look as I shoot my way through, and when we get to the very end of the video, we'll look at the scores that I obtained with the 2 different sighting devices in the various drills. Also, I'm using my shot timer, so I'm going to be keeping track of how fast I'm getting shots on target during these drills, and we'll look at that at the end of the video also. There are a couple of other things I want to mention before we get to the range footage. First off, I have never done a lot of handgun shooting with a laser sight. I've done a little bit, but not a great deal. Conversely, I've done quite a bit of shooting with micro red dot optics over the last several years. So I have a lot more time on the micro red dot than I have on the laser sight on a handgun, but I was a taser instructor for about 10 years, and I've got a lot of time using laser sights on the taser to include some actual applications in real life incidents. And I just want everyone to be aware of that. Also, the fact that I just attached the BALDR Pro to my Canik Mete. I zeroed it here in the shop at a distance of about 7 yards by basically just aligning the laser with the top of the front sight. And when I got out to the range, I tested my zero, and I'll show you when I get the target up here where you can see it, that I was hitting a little low with the laser. So I was compensating with that, or compensating for that rather, with my hold as I shot my way through the drills. And sometimes you'll see the laser sight above the area where I'm intending to shoot, but you'll see the shots are hitting lower. So now let me tell you about the drills. So the drills you're going to see are going to look very familiar if you've seen very many of my handgun reviews, because I'm using the exact same drill starting out at a distance of 5 yards shooting controlled pairs, which is coming up and as quickly as I can gain target acquisition, squeezing off 2 accurate shots. And again, accuracy is paramount because I'm trying to keep all of my shots from all the drills in this very center portion of the target, so they each get 3 points. And for the headshots, I am trying to keep them inside of this center brain area, so they each get 3 points. I could fire these drills faster, but accuracy would suffer. So I am trying to maintain the highest level of accuracy that I can and fire off the shots as quickly as I can while maintaining that level of accuracy. So again, controlled pairs from 5 yards, then I'll move back to 7 yards and fire failure drills, which is 2 shots to the body and 1 shot to the head. Then I'll move back to a distance of 15 yards and fire 5 shots to the body, and then move back to a distance of 25 yards and fire again 5 shots to the body from that distance of 25 yards. All the shooting is going to be initiated by my shot timer, and I'm going to keep track of the time that I fire in each of the drills. At the end, I'll look at the average times, and I'll also do a percentage comparison to show how much difference there was between the 2 sighting systems during the course of the drills. So here we go. .53, 2.53. 2.07, 2.07. 2.36, 2.36. 2.06, 2.06. 2.07, 2.07. And 1.73. And here are the results of those controlled pairs from 5 yards. I've marked them with the blue stickers. And before I get into the results, I want to point out this target. These were the 3 shots that I fired from 7 yards when I first got to the range, testing out the BAL-DR laser. And you can see they were hitting this low from 7 yards. And as you see, when I get to greater and greater distances, those are going to drop lower and lower as compared to where the laser dot is when I start to fire the drills. In any case, back to the results from 5 yards, all 6 shots with the MRDS are dead center in the heart, very tight cluster, all well within that center box. So they're all worth 3 points. So that's a score of 18 for the micro red dot. And also, look at this. The group with the laser sight is slightly vertically strung, but also still easily all 6 shots within that center box. And this also scored 18 points. The time difference, however, is notable. The average time for the controlled pairs with the laser was 1.95 seconds. The average time with the micro red dot was 2.32 seconds. The laser was actually 26% faster than the micro red dot, and the accuracy was, for all practical purposes, the same. I think this is largely due to the fact that when I come up with the laser sight, I can see the laser dot somewhere on the target, and it is quicker to bring it to the proper point on the target and start my trigger press than with the micro red dot, where if I come up and I don't see that dot right away, I have to take an instant and look for it, and then when I get it finally in my field of view, I can start my trigger press. So the accuracy was very, very good with the micro red dot sight, but it was at least measurably slower than the laser sight, so I have to give that 5-yard controlled pair drill to the laser sight. .09, 3.09. .81, 2.81. And don't aim at it. 2.74, 2.74. .62, 2.62. And here are the results of those 7-yard failure drills marked with the red stickers. With the micro red dot sight, I've got 3 shots that are in the 3-point area. 1 shot made it just below that into the 2-point area, so the micro red dot lost a point here. The 2 shots that were fired at the head both clipped this center brain area, so they both get credit for 3 points. So the micro red dot sight ends up with a score of 17 points and an average time for those trios of shots of 2.95 seconds. The laser sight has all 4 shots in the 3-point area, so they each scored 3 points. This shot to the head clipped the spine, so it gets credit for 3 points. This one is solidly in the 2-point area, so the laser sight loses a point there. So it also receives a score of 17, but once again, the average time was faster, with each of those 3 shots averaging 2.68 seconds. So it's not dramatic. We're not talking about a great deal of time. This is measured in hundredths of a second, obviously, but the laser sight was still about 7% faster, so when we come to looking at the score and the time, round 2 is also going to go to the laser sight. And by the way, I don't know if you're as surprised by this as I was, but I was very surprised to see this. In any case, now let's take a look at what happened when I got back to 15 yards and fired 5 shots at the body with each sighting system from that distance. .76 seconds. .22 seconds. The 15-yard stage was a good stage for the micro red dot. I have the shots marked with the green stickers, and I hope you can see this easily because it's starting to get crowded on here. From that distance of 15 yards, the micro red dot had 1 shot that was basically dead center in the heart, 3 shots that broke the 3-point line, so they all got credit for 3 points, and 1 shot that made it just below that 3-point line into the 2-point area. So the score for the micro red dot from 15 yards was 14 with an elapsed time of 5.76 seconds. With the laser sight, I have a good group, but as you can see, it is low all down into the 2-point area. And if you recall, when I first tried to check my zero from 7 yards, I was hitting a little bit low. From 15 yards, I was hitting even lower, and I was not holding high enough to compensate. So this is a decent group, and it was a few inches higher, it would be a good score. But as it turned out, the laser sight from that distance of 15 yards has a score of 10 points with an elapsed time of 5.22 seconds. So the time is still faster with the laser sight, and had the accuracy, or maybe I should say the zero, been better, this would have probably been at least a 14, if not 15 out of 15. Even so, round 3 from 15 yards goes to the micro red dot, and now it's time to go back to 25 yards and try this same drill again with 5 shots to the body from that distance. And I have to say, I was not entirely sure at 25 yards that I was even going to be able to see the laser sight, but as it turns out, when I got back there, I could see the dot, so I fired through the drill, and here's what it looked like. .10.20 seconds. .67 seconds. And here are the results of the 25-yard shooting, which I have marked with the yellow stickers. And how about this from 25 yards with the micro red dot? I've got 4 out of the 5 shots that are in the 3-point area, 1 shot that I pulled a little bit low into the 2-point area. But all in all, that was really good with the micro red dot from that distance. The time was 10.2 seconds. So I was taking a little over 2 seconds a shot. So the accuracy was impressive, but I had to take my time a little bit and make sure I was getting a good trigger press, good sight picture, all of that, to be able to get that level of accuracy. The laser sight, on the other hand, has a much larger group than I got with the micro red dot, but I fired these 5 shots in about half the time. It was 5.67 seconds as opposed to 10.20 seconds, and I was kind of impressed from that distance, shooting at that tempo, to have 5 shots on the target that are in that good of a group. So while the micro red dot clearly won that stage from 25 yards, and I generally expected the micro red dot was going to do better and better as distance increased, whereas I suspected that the precision with the laser sight would decrease as distance got greater and greater. I just still was kind of impressed to be able to see this kind of a group from that distance. Now, I was holding up here because of that deviation that I had with my 0, but still, with this group size from that distance, I was not too terribly upset. Speaking of time, during the course of the first 3 drills, the laser sight averaged 14% faster than the micro red dot for getting my shots on target. In that last drill, the 25-yard drill, the laser sight was 44% faster to get this group on target than the micro red dot to get this group on target. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, precision and accuracy, I think, is the paramount concern. So overall, in this evaluation, the micro red dot turned out to be the more precise sight, although if I had my 0 proper on the laser sight, and if I worked with that to the degree that I have worked with the micro red dot over the last several years, this might have been a whole lot closer. Again, I was somewhat impressed by the results that I was getting here with the laser sight as opposed to the micro red dot. And for as much as the popularity of the laser sight has declined in recent years, I think there might still be something to be said for it. And when we consider that with the laser sight, as I said much earlier in the video, I can shoot from unusual positions behind cover and what have you, that adds a component as well. I tried this drill that you're about to see at the range from a distance of 5 yards, 15 feet, shooting from behind cover, and as you'll see, I've got the pistol up above my head. It's turned at an extremely odd angle. There's no way that this is any kind of a conventional shooting position. Even so, take a look at the results I was able to get shooting from behind cover using the laser sight. How about that, folks? From that distance of 15 feet, shooting from that extremely unusual shooting position, 3 out of 4 shots are on the heart, and 1 of them just barely missed it. I did not bother to time that drill, but I was basically squeezing off the shots about as quick as I saw the dot reappear in the center of the target and had no problem whatsoever keeping those shots there. I'm fairly confident that I can say I would not have been able to do that firing from a similar position using the micro red dot or even iron sights for that matter. So with an extremely unusual shooting position, shooting from behind cover or what have you, that is one place where the laser sight has a definite advantage. So final thoughts on this laser versus micro red dot evaluation. The first thing I want to say is the Canik Mete SF continues to impress me. If you go back and look at those targets through all those drills, this pistol just puts bullets where I want them to go, and it is an extremely good handgun. Looking at the evaluation itself, if we look at strictly the score, the laser sights had a total score of 53. The micro red dot had a total score of 63. So the micro red dot sight was the clear winner. But I have to say, I came out of this evaluation with a new respect for the laser sight. At what I would call across the room distances, the distances back to 7 yards, the laser sight was as precise as the micro red dot, and the times were faster. In fact, the times were generally faster. Not generally, they were totally faster the whole way through the evaluation. So I was kind of impressed by that. I did not expect that kind of performance from the laser sight, and it performed very well. Now, I am not going to run out and buy laser sights for all of my handguns, and I'm not suggesting that all of you do that either. But I think in the end, it all comes down to what it always comes down to with defensive firearms and any other defensive measures, and that is the training and preparation of the individual with that person's tools and techniques is going to trump what exactly is selected for their tools or techniques. And if someone opts for the laser sight and they train and they practice and they prepare, I think they could do just as well in a defensive scenario as someone who prepares and practices to the same degree with the micro red dot sight. And that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 5% off your purchase from Optics Planet. Also remember the discount code from Hot Munitions. If you go to Hot Munitions, you can use my discount code there, which is HRFunk10, and that'll save you 10% off your purchase from Hot Munitions. And don't forget the Target sponsor from the channel. If you go to Target's online, check out their inventory and see if they have anything that's going to meet your Target needs. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.